cracking, everybody? Money Smart Guy, Matt Zapala here, hailing to you from Dallas, Texas, here from the Grandscape Studios here in the Colony. And I'm excited about this episode of the Millionaire Goals podcast. And we got a couple gentlemen here that we're interviewing on this podcast. Let me bring up my friend Jason Elias Gonzalez. A lot of people know as Jason Elias. But born and raised in Brooklyn, New York. Yeah. Sometimes he says coffee. Where he began his career in financial markets. He's a financial advisor for Morgan Stanley and led to help positions in the investment banking and compliance fields. Jason has more than 2 decades of experience working with top-level executives in multiple sectors. I came across him in the valuetainment community at the Sales Leadership Summit series.
Yeah, a couple of years ago.
Hosted by my mentor, Patrick Bet-David, at the Breakers in Palm Beach.
Yep.
My next guest here also is Tony Mack, former professional boxer, has a notable career in boxing. He's awarded a bronze medal in the USA Boxing National Championship, became 5 times Dallas Golden Glove champion, and 3 times Texas State champion. He turned pro at 27 years old, and soon after the good start in the league, he had to leave boxing for good due to occurring injury with his eye, but he converted his skills into business as an entrepreneur here. And so, gentlemen, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you for
having us. All right, thank you for having us, man.
Man, I'm excited to have you, man.
It. Thank you for having us.
I know you in Dallas as the connector.
Yeah.
So if people want to know who I've been making a lot of connections with here in the Dallas area, it's this guy right here. Yeah. He introduced me to Tony at the Cowboys Lounge. You invited me to the Cowboys Lounge.
Yep, Cowboys Club. Yep.
Cowboys Club. Yeah. Absolutely. So why people want to ask why are so many people moving from other states to Texas? You got your reasons. And by the way, Tony's also from Chicago, Chi-Town.
Chi-Town.
South side.
Yeah.
But we're all now. So we got Chicago, New York, Chicago, Dallas. What made Dallas such an attractive city for you?
Sure. And, well, first of all, thank you for having me on the show.
Sure,
and Tony's a very good friend also. And so what you started saying was also about connecting, about putting the right people together for the right things. Mm-hmm. But to your question, Dallas is an incredible soil. Texas is a great soil. We're also men of faith. We follow our faith, and a lot of what we look at is putting ourselves in the right soil. So personally, when I was making a decision of where I could live, I was in Washington, D.C. before this, I had to take a look at what the right soil was. And at the end of the day, Texas has that great soil because we need a couple of those things to survive, right? We need the soil, we need the sun, we need the water. We need a little bit of shit. Can I curse?
Yeah, go for it, man.
Sure.
We men around here.
We need a little bit of manure to let the crops grow right.
We are men of faith.
Right? We need a little bit of shit.
We're human.
That's right.
Listen, don't believe anyone that hasn't had a little manure in their life. That's the way I see it. Manure makes you mature. I just made that up. I don't know.
From New York, you're rapping.
But my point is that Texas is an amazing soil. It has great people, faith. Great business opportunities, very business friendly, and that was the biggest reason for me. It's if you want to be a palm tree, don't put yourself in Minnesota.
That's right, freeze to death. Right.
Find yourself the soil that's going to fit for you. So as I was making the decision on where I wanted to plant some roots, pun intended, Dallas was the place to be. Yeah. And we're going to sprinkle a little of that manure to get mature, right? So, yeah,
that's for sure.
There you go. That's right.
Why Dallas for you? Why'd you move down here?
All right, so I was born in Dallas. So when I'm in Chicago, I'm from Dallas. When I'm in Dallas, I'm from Chicago.
I got you.
So my pops, he was born and raised in Chicago. My pops raised me by himself as a single man. So he was an ex-hustler, he was on the street life. But he took care of me. He was a man. He took care of me. So whenever I needed something, he'd just fly me to Chicago, stay with his sisters. So my aunts raised me. His sisters raised me. So both of them are home. Yeah. So both of them are home. Both of them raised me, So I love Dallas. I love Chicago. Both of them. Yeah, is where I reside. I claim both of them. So,
okay, now are you a Bears fan or a Cowboys fan?
I'm a Cowboys fan. I am a Cowboys fan.
First area of conflict in this podcast.
Immediately, I love the Cowboys.
That was the reason for the seating arrangement. And I'm a Giant, so they put the Giant in the middle.
No kidding. But it's funny. We're in the insurance business. A lot of people don't realize how strongly but yet silently powerful the insurance industry is. And for example, in Chicago. Mm-hmm. Majority of the big skyscrapers and buildings are named after insurance companies. Right. You got former Sears Tower, now named as a Willis. That's insurance. You got John Hancock, that's insurance. You got CNA building, that's insurance. You got Aon building, that's insurance. So all these buildings, I can go on and on about all the tallest buildings in Chicago. They're named after insurance. New York Giants, New York Jets play in the MetLife
Stadium.
Sure, and that is Insurance.
Good point.
Crazy point about it. What's some of the common scenarios that you're finding here, Jason, when you're dealing with clients, you're dealing with entrepreneurs? And by the way, congratulations on your position as president of Flag Media. What are you seeing right now in the business landscape? As it relates to where we're coming from. We're about our business. We're about our Lord's business.
Sure.
And yet we're about our business. I mean, what are some of the commonalities you're seeing here of folks that you're doing business with in terms of clients?
Yeah. The biggest thing that we're seeing is identifying opportunities. I think that when you find people that have been successful, they've pivoted a number of times in their careers or in their lives. And I think the most common thing that we're talking about is understanding the opportunities that are on the horizon. And I think that that's a common conversation that we're having, whether it's identifying AI and what it's going to do for their business, whether it's figuring out what they need to do to survive. It's not survival of the fittest, it's survival of who's willing to adapt to what's going on in the environment. So that's really been the common conversation that we've been having, is really about figuring out what it's going to take to survive in the marketplace. Because with all the technology that's coming down, they're either going to adapt or they're going to be left by the wayside. Yep. So that's easily been the top conversation that we've been talking about, is how do we adapt? What do we need to do to adapt, and what do we need to do to make sure that we're prepared for the next 2, 3, 4, 10 years if we're going to survive?
In the podcast, for those of you watching right now, we've got some reaction videos we want you guys to react to. What's going on in our economy, what's going on in our society, what's going on with relationships in America today, because I know we're all faith-based gentlemen here, and how are we going about business as believers, as entrepreneurs, as ambitious and driven men? How do we go about our business? So for those of you watching us, make sure you stay posted, because we got some of their reactions to what's going on in current events today as it pertains to your point there. When you left boxing, how was that moment for you? You had retina issues, you had eye issues, and you realized that your dream of being a pro fighter was about to come to a harsh close. How was that? How did you deal with that?
It was very scary. I was lost at one point, because I remember when I had those detached retina surgeries. That's one of the worst surgeries you can have, because you can't.
Sugar Ray,
You had them, yeah. And I had 5 surgeries back to back. So
in your eye,
in my left eye.
Wow.
And so when you recovering from detached retina, you can't look up. You have to keep your head down on the ground in order for the gas bubble or the oil bubble to stay. So I had to face down for 2 weeks straight, and I had 5 of those surgeries. So I was in a depressed state of mind. So in my mind, I was always thinking about what's next, and I dibbled and dabbled in certain things, trying to find my path, but boxing always been my path. And so I was like, you know what? Let's not pity myself. Let's figure out a way to help other champions. Because I can't become a world champion. How can I help multiple world champions? So that's when I went to my business partner. One of my business partners, Nate, was like, yo, I really think I can open up a gym, man. And he was like, if you're serious, go get an LLC. I was like, what is that? Like, what is LLC? And so I did my research the next day. Yeah. Next 2 days, I got it done, and then he was like, all right, let's go find a location. And then everything just started going in the right path for me, and then that's how it happened.
Oftentimes a lot of athletes don't make that transition, though. Mm-hmm. They stay in that depressed state.
Exactly.
There's a documentary out there on Netflix I was catching. It's called MVP, Merging Veterans and Players, and where they bring together former professional athletes to work out with also veteran military service members, because they both go through a phase of depression. Because in the military, you might be a sergeant. In the military, you might be a captain, colonel. Yeah. And you come into a room, you earned your stripes. People respect you. People salute you. People stay attention on deck, officer on deck, whatever the case may be in the military. So there's that level of respect when you're serving in the military. You're amongst your brothers and sisters in uniform. Yeah. But when you get out, you're in the 1st Civilian Division. You're Joe Schmo again.
100%.
You're from the bottom. Same thing too with professional athletes. I can imagine you respect it. I'll give you an example. It was the NBA All-Star game, the game after Kobe had died. It was held in Chicago, right? And I'm walking in. It was like everybody and their mom was coming to the NBA All-Star game, right? And so I'm walking in. Right next to me is Ron Harper. Ron Harper played with Michael Jordan. He won multiple championships, point guard, right? Mm-hmm. And I'm like, I'm walking in with you like, I'm just like one of the guys. He's like one of the guys too. You built this damn stadium, right? And I'm like, okay, all right, that's kind of weird. To my left, down in the McNabb. Walking, you got a big hoodie.
Chicago guy.
Of course, Chicago guy too.
Yeah.
And he was the prize of Philly.
Philadelphia. Yep.
Yeah, everybody and their mom wanted to be around Don McNabb. Everybody wanted to be around Ron Harper. Now, life after pro sports,
sure, they're
walking in just like everybody else. No security detail, sitting in the back row. Mm-hmm. That's got to be depressing.
Yeah.
To know that you had all the spotlight and all the shine, and now you're just like
Just
everybody else.
it's all about what have you done for me lately? Basically, like as in
That's
sports
sport.
and all this stuff in sports.
Yeah.
So you got to stay relevant, man. You got to keep
Yeah.
reinventing yourself.
Yeah.
That's what it's about.
Reinventing yourself. That's a great point.
Yeah.
For sure.
So
Yep.
your situation. So I'm a married guy.
Sure.
Okay, I'm a married guy. You're still single.
Yep.
Okay, why? Good looking guy.
He put you.
You're a good looking guy. You're rich.
I'm just going to look into the
You're
camera.
rich
and
and
answer.
making money.
Just going to answer directly into the camera. No, look, that's a great question. And at the end of the day, I think a lot of it also has to do with what we talked about before, which was soil. And it also has to do with a little bit of maturity. It's also about a little bit of the project that I'm launching now, which is a development stage for young men, right? There's a whole thing that we're launching now, which is called Modern Day Don.
Yeah.
It's about understanding what young men need to get to the next level, to be what they need to be a Don within their lives. It's called Modern Day Don, right? We'll be at moderndaydon.com and on Modern Day Don Official. But the whole thought process is that when you're younger, do you have exactly what it needs? Do you have the right mindset? I mean, look, I didn't even pick up the book till about 5 years ago. So I think what that says is there's a certain amount of development. I think that there's an epidemic of not having enough fathers in our country, in the world, across the world. So I think it really had to do with coming up in the world. And coming up in the world, it really was about understanding where I was and maybe some decisions I made along the way.
What was your upbringing? Mom, dad, together? What was your situation like?
Yeah, so born and raised in Brooklyn. Both my parents were both born here. Both of all of their parents.
You're still together?
No, my dad passed away a couple of years ago.
Okay, sorry to hear
But my
that.
mom, I appreciate it, but my mom was a New York City principal. And so they grew up in Brooklyn. They were together since the 7th grade.
Wow.
They met in 7th grade junior high school,
Yeah.
a school that my mom ended up going teaching in.
Wow.
Right, 7th grade, they're sitting there, and my grandfather was the neighborhood money runner. So he was a mini gangster in and of itself.
Yeah.
So my dad had all this gangster swag to him too, because his father was the Don of the neighborhood. So there's amazing stories there, and them being together the entire time. But look, there were challenges along the way. I think your environment creates who you are to a huge degree. I didn't grow up in the best area. There was a lot of situations. Unfortunately, my dad had problems with alcohol as we were coming up, and a lot of that has to do with how you're shaped as a person. And it also has to do with how you're forged as a man, right? Because there's a big difference in men are built versus adult males, which I think we have a big society right now of adult males rather than men walking around.
You know, the thing, the reason why I bring that up,
Yep.
because most guys, when I was in Chicago, if guys were single, or were older, they had money on their side, I always saw them running game. I don't ever see you running game, bro. I don't see you having 5, 6, 10 girls, although you could. I don't see you having drama in your life from weird text messages. Hey, man, I got to go because I got to take care of this. You know, I think that's the reason I want to bring that up.
Sure.
Because if I'm a young man today and I'm coming up, I'm so confused. I mean, imagine coming up and as a teenage boy and you got Instagram.
Yeah.
You got girls. I mean, when girls were wearing jeans when I was growing up, you're, oh, she's hot.
Right.
This is
girls
crazy
wearing
these days.
These girls today wearing leggings. I mean, like there's nothing there. Like you can see the outline, everything.
Yep.
They're naked,
Right?
basically.
Yeah, they're naked. You
Yeah.
know,
You can see the old whatever.
You know, and
It's crazy.
I'm so good. What's your situation like, Tony, as it relates to?
I am married, no children. Yes, marriage is very good for me because it creates that stability.
Yeah.
Because when I was in my 20s fighting, I was out there having fun. Of
course,
and I wasn't
testosterone,
as focused as I wanted to be.
That's right.
But
What do we say? The word pre-Christ?
yeah, and I was still a man of God. I was a David back then. But being married is just helped me stay focused in my business, helped me stay focused on my
Were you
other
married
goals.
then?
No, this is my first. Me and my wife met in our 30s, and so now we waiting to have kids. So we should be starting to have kids in the next couple of months. That's
no
the
rush.
goal.
No
And no
rush.
rush.
Yeah.
You know, I still got plenty of time, but it helped me stay focused, man, because you have that support you need. You're not worried about what's all out there. You get to focus on your goals, get to focus on your task, and man, because women is a distraction. You don't need that.
You
in your
just hit the
life.
nail on the head.
They are.
And
They're
as you were
distractions.
saying that, the biggest word that came
Yeah.
to mind as you were sharing that was the word distraction.
Yeah.
Because at the end of the
Distraction.
day, there's more distractions than ever.
Oh my God.
And that's for men and for women, and also about how we've shifted the culture.
And I'm not even looking for the
Yeah.
distraction. The distractions
No.
are finding me on
No,
social
right.
media.
I mean, they're going to pop
crazy.
up right in front of you, and exactly to what you were saying before. There's a lot of distractions that I can decide of what I want to pick up.
Yeah.
But I have to decide on what I want to focus all of my time in and what my purpose is. And I think there's a lot of young men out there and young women as well that once they figure out what their purpose is, it's a game changer. Because at that point, all the shiny objects aren't that attractive. And when you realize the amount of potential collateral that comes along with them, then they're very expensive as well.
Oh, for sure.
So I think when you can frame it that way, so to what you were saying and being able to see the way I move in this kind of an area, is that that's the way I look at life.
I agree,
everything is about bandwidth. Everything is about my attention. Everything is about what I give. When I give to you, I give to you. When I give to Tony, I give to Tony. That's why I'm blessed to have the people around me. But I don't give to distractions.
Yeah, I mean, I had kids when I was 22. I get back from my first deployment, bam, got married, had a kid, and then that same year, filed for divorce and filed for bankruptcy. It's crazy. Introduction to my book. It's just, it was pre-Christ.
Right.
But, I applaud you, gentlemen, because that's an example that you don't see a lot in men today. They've waited to be more mature, be settled in their, established in their finances, established in their career before bringing children into this world. And I think a lot of the younger generation, I was part of that. My biggest mistake, if I had to do my life all over again, I would wait till I'm more established in my money, my career, et cetera, et cetera.
To get married.
To get married, to start raising kids, because I've experienced both now. I've experienced, raising kids, you're flat broke. And I remember talking about yesterday being on WIC for 30 days, and I'm like, I'm never doing this again, going into entrepreneurship, and then having kids when you got money, the big difference,
Sure.
How do you think you guys will be as fathers? That when you decide to get married, and you have a kid, and you bring, how do you think your viewpoint on fatherhood will be?
A lot of it I also look at it from a leadership perspective. And I think that because of the opportunities that I've been given to lead organizations, to lead groups of people, I think that's prepared me a little more than if I would have jumped in when I was 20, 21.
Yeah.
I think if I would have had a kid when I was 20 or 21, I think that there would be some challenges that I'd be looking back on right now and maybe having some regrets towards. So I think that a lot of the leadership positions that I've had, a lot of the mistakes I've made, a lot of the scars that I have underneath this armor, because they're vast and deep. At the same time, the time that I spent to heal those wounds and to be able to be a better man today, I think is going to make me a better father. So I'm excited about it. If it's something that's in the that's on the landscape. At the same time, I know that the gauntlets that I've been through are going to make me a much better man, because I wasn't the man that I am today even 5 years ago. And it takes men to make men. So if God blesses me with little boys, fantastic. With little girls, fantastic. And I feel as though now I'm ready to take that stand.
And that's the thing. I always my upside. I was telling my wife. My wife, by the way, feels very comfortable with me hanging around you. Usually, guys will have friends, right, Tony? The wives won't like.
100%.
Right.
I have a few of those friends.
Of course, right? You go out with who?
Yeah.
Why?
Nope.
Right? My wife feels very comfortable when I say, "Hey, babe, I'm with Jason." My wife says sometimes, "Well, when are we going to go on a date with?" I wish I was Jason. Which tells me, okay, maybe I need to take the wife.
I have a great smile. It's the dimple. We call it face cleavage.
But you're always hanging around. You're always hanging around with other
Godly
ambitious
men.
and godly men.
Men, yeah.
Iron sharpens iron, man. I don't ever see you casually with your guard down. Going out and stepping out. I don't see
Well, there's
you
a few interesting words you said there. One is casual,
Yeah.
and two is then the iron sharpens iron. At the end of the day, when you've done the work, when you've earned who you are, and that's one of the mottos that we use behind the Don brand, which is earn it.
Yeah.
It's very simple, earn it.
Yeah.
You want it, earn it. Pray to tell God what you want, but then earn it.
Yeah.
Everything we say, earn it, earn it, earn it, earn it. So at the end of the day, if you've earned to be a certain animal in this environment, what ends up happening is two things. Other similar animals can feel it and enjoy being around you. And then those other animals that feel your predator in you, the predator in you, can't stand being around you. So it ends up being a double-edged sword in a good way, because there are a lot of people that I choose not to have in my life. And at the same time, they are extremely uncomfortable around me. And I'm completely fine with that. That doesn't bother me one bit.
Amen.
And I think that once you do that and you shine to a certain light, if someone can't look at you, it's because their eyes are dilated because they've been in the dark for too long.
and your
So that's
shine
not my problem.
is causing
That's
them
not
to
my
not be able to see you straight. That's it. I got you. I got you. So I want to ask you about combat sports.
Combat sports
and the
is
business of boxing.
Yes.
Combat sports is taken. Obviously, it's just continuing to grow and accelerate. My son's a fighter up in Denver. He's a Muay Thai. He's a Muay Thai guy.
Yeah.
Right. He wants to be a hands coach, a mitts coach.
Okay.
That's what he wants to do. So He's got jiu-jitsu going on. He's got MMA going on. He's working a supplement store during the day. What's the reality of making money as a pro fighter?
Man, there's so many places I could start, man. So, fighters, they look at Instagram, they look at everything, all this little flashy stuff on the mitts and everything. They look at the fun part of boxing. But most of these fighters these days are not willing to run through a brick wall to be successful. Man, so fighters gotta be successful. You gotta put in the work to get to that level where Mayweather's at. You gotta dedicate everything. You gotta have a heart. You gotta have a chin. You gotta have discipline in order to get to that next level in boxing, and people don't have that. You get hit one time in the mouth, the next thing you know, you crumble.
Yeah.
You gotta be a tough dude to get to the next level. You gotta be really smart. You gotta live and breathe boxing. You just can't have 1 foot in and 1 foot out. You gotta be dedicated to the sport. And most fighters these days don't have it, especially these fighters, they come up in very good upbringing and stuff like this, so they don't have nothing to fight for. Yeah. The most successful fighters are the ones that have nothing to lose. They got to put they've been through something in life.
Yeah,
they've been through the ups and downs. They know what it's like to get punched multiple times, to get back up multiple times. So you got to have that. You got to be willing to run through a brick wall to get to the next level in order to be successful in boxing.
Like we just had the combine here with the NFL here last week, right? And you'll have your guys that are naturally fast. And then what's the thing that they can't teach speed? They can probably improve a little bit, but they really can't teach. You're faster, you're not, right?
Yeah, 100%.
In boxing, is speed in boxing with your hands, is that natural or is that nurtured? Coach?
It's nurtured. You can learn speed.
Wow.
It's all in boxing. It's all about timing. Timing beats speed. Timing beat power. It's all about timing. Look at Earl Spence Jr. He's not the fastest. He's not the most strongest, but his timing is crazy. If you could time the punches, time somebody's speed, time somebody's power, and just have your defense on point and learn how to counterpunch, a beautiful counterpuncher could beat anybody with speed. So you just got to have your timing on point. You got to be in the best shape ever and be willing to weather the storm with somebody's speed with as fast as ever.
Yeah.
Then you got to be able to time them and put the work in.
Okay, so you have one of two options. You can choose speed or you can choose power. You can have a knockout punch or you can have blazing speed. What would you prefer?
Man, I would say power.
Really?
For me, like you could be fast, but I've seen some of the fastest fighters make it to the deep waters, like the 6th, 7th, 8th round, and they have somebody who got power and walk them down. It's just the war of attrition. It's just walking them down, and eventually the X factor gonna show up and crack you.
Yeah.
Because I've seen multiple fast fighters, the fighters that like to be on their feet, like to be on a bicycle, running, pop shotting. Then next thing you know, they get tired eventually. If you're not in the best shape of your life, you can't fight like that forever. You can't have that speed. But if you timing your opponent, walking them down, hands up, defense, using the jab, and then power shot, set them up with the power. Yeah. It's all about timing, setting them up with the power, and then you get that. Once you have that X factor, everybody's scared to fight you. Say, for instance, this fight this weekend, David Benavidez, hope I'm saying his name right, and Caleb Plant. There's going to be a beautiful fight because Caleb Plant is the fastest fighter ever, and David Benavidez is not fast. He just knocked everybody out. He got a knockout ratio of 100% because he beat all those fast guys. They're supposed to be the fast ones, but he walk them down behind the jab and crack them.
But can I ask you a question that comes up in boxing a lot? Mexican fighters have a brand because of Chavez and his chin. Now you have your black fighters because of Muhammad Ali and Mayweather and Tyson. Yeah, I mean, is there a natural disposition to your heritage and how well you are as a fighter? Caucasian fighters are like Mickey, like the older fighters, the old OG box, like the old, gangs of New York type style fighters. Is it dumb question, but it gets brought up in conversation.
It's heritage because
really
heritage and the way whatever coach you have. Because look, I got to experience both. When I was an amateur, I had a Mexican coach. He was a hardcore Mexican coach, and so my skills wasn't the greatest, but I was a tough mother. I just walked people down because I started boxing late. I started at 20, so my skills and my athleticism weren't there. I had to learn that. I was a brawler. But he taught me the basics, but I had to be super tough because when he taught me, I was just walking down. I wasn't that much head movement. Then when I got with Derek James, which is he's coach of the year, he taught me skills. He taught me movement. He taught me counterpunch. He taught me how to keep my hands up. He taught me how to be a little bit smoother on my feet. And so I had a little bit of both. So I know how to box at times, and I knew how to walk you down and get you out of there. So I had the Mexican style with the black style. It's a little bit of both. But when I was fighting amateur, like some of the black coaches kind of be like, "Man, you fighting like a Mexican, man. You gotta look. You gotta be smooth. Come train." But I was like, "Nah, I was loyal, dedicated to my coach." But when I turned pro, I was like, I won't have, I can't sustain a good career like this. So I went with Derek James. So because I had a little bit of both.
So I'm Filipino. So
Pacquiao.
Pacquiao. So what's
the biggest Filipino I've ever seen?
So what's the stereotype on Filipino fighters? What's our MO?
Man, I would say Pacquiao just ruined it for you because everybody expect y'all to be like Pacquiao. That's my perspective.
Is he a timing fighter? He's a speed guy.
He's a speed dude, and he's good with timing too. Yeah. Pacquiao's an all-around fighter.
And he's always moving from different angles.
His footwork, angles is what helped him be successful because he hitting you with a bunch of speed, and as you know, he on the other side of you.
Yeah.
He just always hitting angles, always turning,
It's got me confused just watching him.
Yeah, he's that. But like you say, but look at Marquez. You see what happened to him. He had that timing. He timed that speed.
Yeah.
And put him out.
But it took him 3 fights.
He figured it out. He's a slow learner, all right?
But after that, though, his Pacquiao started going like this after that fight.
Yeah.
After the fight. Yeah. Did you have a boxer you looked up to? I mean, in New York, Tyson?
Tyson.
I mean, Tyson was just...
I remember we were in the gym because Tony trains me as well. And nothing to the level of getting in the ring, but just from a fitness perspective. Yeah. And we had the conversation once, and it was, who's your favorite fighter? And I'm a Tyson guy.
Yeah.
And it's something about growing up in that era. I grew up in the Tyson era, Biggie Smalls. I mean, I grew up in Brooklyn.
Yeah.
So you had these guys that were big, that were part of the culture growing up when you had, Wu-Tang and the hip-hop era. Yeah. And Tyson was a part of that. Yeah, Tyson was a part of that.
From a financial standpoint, what's the financials of a fighter? Okay, so you obviously only make money. You fight for the fight purse. But what do you do between fights? And what do you do to make sure that who you paying?
Man, so what I'm doing as a fighter when I was coming up, because boxing is a poor man's sport. You see what Mayweather's doing, but that's not the reality of it. If you don't have a great amateur background, if you don't have like the Olympics under your, or you had a good pedigree coming in, you'll be fighting for scraps until you keep winning up. You got to fight your way to the top to get to the level after the 20 of something.
So you're like the tune-up. You're like the practice fights for
we call them tomato cans. You fight a couple of tomato cans to build you up. So you got to
like shoot.
Yeah, exactly. We get a couple of tomato cans in, and then you build your record up. You get your skills. You build a fighter. So you're not going to make money. So most fighters you got to sell tickets in order to start making money. So that with most of them, you get a deal with a promoter, be like, okay, if you bring in this many tickets, that's when you get paid. All right,
as a fighter. So you got to worry about getting butts and seats as well as you win in a fight.
Exactly. Yep. Or if you won the Olympics or you was a multiple national champion, that's when somebody put money behind you. You get a manager or something like that. And that's how most fighters do it, man. You gotta work your way to the top, unless you had an Olympic or a crazy background and people willing to back you up.
So are fight purses equally split between red corner and blue corner?
No, and
it's not.
In boxing, so if you the star or the prospect, you get paid more, and if you somebody coming in, the contender, you might get paid a little something. But a lot of people don't want to fight the stars because you're gonna get knocked out, so they pay the opponents a lot more than a fighter sometimes, just to take the fight. If you're known for knocking somebody out, if you're known for just dominating people, nobody want to fight you. So the promoters will pay the opponent a lot more just to take the fight.
Okay, so who do you pay as a fighter? What's your infrastructure? If I'm a fighter, who else am I paying?
Man, it just depends on the level you are.
Yeah.
Say, for instance, some fighters started with like $1,000 to $5,000 when you first start, $10,000. Every fighter is different. It just depends. But if they trying to build you, sometimes your opponent gonna make a little bit more money than you because they know that they're not paying you to knock. They're not paying the opponent to take a fall. Yeah. But they just know that this is a prospect, and they know that this guy is going to get him out because he have the amateur background, he have the experience, he have the skills more than this guy right here. So they're going to pay him a little bit more. But some fighters, it just depends on your background, if they're willing to invest in you. So it's hard to say. But for my experience, I started boxing late. I started at 20 years old. So I had I wasn't an athlete, but I had the amateur background. So I signed with Prize Fight Promotion. But I had a Prize Fight Promotion out of Memphis. They took care of me. I wasn't getting paid a lot. They were just banking on me to
make it
to
big.
make it to the world title. But then that didn't go the way I wanted to. But I ended up fighting with another promoters in Dallas. But then I started making more and more money because I had a big name in Dallas, and they ended up calling me that. My nickname was the ticket seller. Like, I sold tickets. I mean, everybody came out to watch me fight. I mean, I got a big purse off of the ticket sales. Like, if I didn't sell those tickets, I wouldn't have got paid much. So,
what would you say right now to, because a lot of the people that's watching us on YouTube are between 18 and 35, and they might want to consider a career in boxing. What would you tell a young fighter? What would you tell my son who's wanting to establish a career in your industry, in your sport?
You got to have heart. You got to have discipline. You got to be, again, I said this multiple times, you got to be willing to run through a brick wall to be successful. You got to be able to face adversity, because you're gonna get knocked down 1,000 times before you get up, because everybody's not perfect in boxing. It takes a lot to hone your skills. It takes a lot of ass whooping to get to the next level. And if you're not willing to do that, you're not going to be successful. I mean, you really got to dedicate your life to boxing. You just don't. You can't have 1 foot in and 1 foot out. You can't play boxing. You can play football, you can play basketball, but you can't play boxing. You got to take it serious. You got to take it to the next level. And you will not be successful if your heart's not all the way in it. So I would suggest doing something else. I tell my fighters all the time, do me a favor and quit. I was like, you're not going to waste my time. I want somebody who's hungry, who's dedicated. I want somebody who I got to tell to stop training. I got to look, man, slow down, man. Go get some rest.
Yeah.
Stop running. Stop. You're going to hurt your body.
Yeah.
I haven't found that person yet.
By the way,
And I gotta get there.
Tim Grover, who was the trainer to Kobe and Michael Jordan, Dwayne Wade, that's what he used to tell Kobe all the time. Hey, Kobe, get some sleep.
Get some sleep. You have to.
It's part of your training. Because Kobe didn't want to sleep.
And my thing is, I can't want it more than my fighters. If I want it more than my fighters, it's bad. I don't want to deal with you. And that's what my coach used to tell us all the time. I can't want it more than you.
Yeah.
If I want it more than you, you're in the wrong sport.
I mean, Jason, these are what he's talking about is the attributes necessary to survive in business.
It's business. Boxing and business go hand in hand. We talk about it all the time.
Completely. There's so much when it comes down to the dedication that's necessary, the training that goes into it, and just putting in the work, right? I mean, what's the old saying? The more you sweat, the less you bleed, right?
I like that.
And that's the whole idea.
First time hearing it, but I like it.
There we go.
What we say to Marine Corps.
That copyright, Jason Elias, 2023.
Well, Marines say the more you sweat in peace, the less you bleed in war.
There you go. Yeah, and I think that's very similar. I think then where that can then be taken to the business world is in the team aspect of it. Yep. Is it then understanding when you're in the ring, what's the best position you could play in the business side of things? Yep. Because I think then that there's the relationship between it then becoming a team sport after the fact. Yep. But I love what Tony just said, where he says you can't play boxing. Yeah. I was like, ooh, I like that. I had never heard him. I never heard that before. Yeah. But it's a great point. It's right. You can't play boxing. You can play a sport, but boxing is combat. Boxing is pure combat at its finest, and you can't play around with that. And that's why a lot of the men, and Tony included, I have a lot of respect for Tony and people that are willing to step in that ring and put themselves in the face of the purest form of combat that still exists.
And I think with what's going on in America today, you know, the story that's being sold and is getting a lot of shine are those that want to play the victim. Ooh. The biggest complainers right now get the biggest megaphones.
Sure.
You know, and
Chris Rock.
Right.
That show,
right.
that was,
for sure.
Like, I'm not playing a victim. I love it.
Yeah, right. And you know, just listening to you, Tony, you didn't say because I'm black I'm going to win, or because they're white they're going to win, or because they're Puerto Rican or Mexican they're going to win. You said whoever's put in the time, whoever's put in the effort, who's willing to run through a wall, that's who's going to win.
That's why they call boxing the chamber of truth. Chamber of truth. That's why you're gonna. They would tell you who put
the nuggets today.
It's gonna tell you who put the most work in. It's gonna tell you who ran. It's gonna tell you who slept, who ate right, who did the extra work, who did the work outside, who left the gym and went to work. That's what it's going to boxing to tell you the truth.
That's right.
100%.
All the excuses are out.
All the excuses.
I don't care
out.
where we come from.
You can't say nothing because it's gonna tell you the truth in the ring.
Yeah.
Bam. Well, I think a lot more people need to hear that message today because, like I said earlier, I mean, if you cry and whine long enough, you get the attention, sadly. But the opposite is true. If you're excellent enough, you'll also get the shine, but it's a harder path. Harder path to be excellent, to get the shine. Easier to complain and play victim, and you get to shine.
Agreed.
So, I want to shift to some stories that's going on in our country today. I would love your guys' opinion on it. When you got people in a situation where we have a leader of our free country, and Jordan, can you play that clip about what he's doing with Ukraine and the people that he's taking care of? Let's take a look at this clip.
To deliver much-needed humanitarian assistance as well as food, water, medicine, shelter, and other aid to Ukrainians displaced by Russia's war, and provide aid for those seeking refuge in other countries from Ukraine. It's also going to help schools and hospitals open. It's going to allow pensions and social support to be paid to the Ukrainian people so they have something in their pocket. It's also going to provide critical resources to address food shortages around the globe.
How do you guys feel about a president wanting to take care of everybody else? Take care. I understand war. You got to send food and you got to send, I understand that that's your position. And I'm not saying I agree with it either. But when you say I got to take care of their pensions, and I got to take care of their financial wherewithal, and we got people here struggling with their own finances. What's your guys' thoughts on what our current president is doing, especially when he says that on his platform?
Right.
You gotta excuse me. I don't talk politics. I don't really buy into it. So I'm not gonna say nothing. I'm just because I don't. Mm-hmm. I really don't get into it as much. I just do what I'm supposed to do, and I just do the best.
Probably
I
that's
can.
it. That's the point, though, right?
I just do the best I can and just keep plugging away. So that's
Sure.
all you.
Well, no, and that's a great point in that realizing, where there are topics that either we don't want to touch or that, we feel that, aren't something that we want to get into right away. But to your question, spoils of war is a horrible thing. No one can argue that point. The question is whether or not we have leadership in place that understands what the responsibility of that leadership is. Mm-hmm. I believe if you're going to take the responsibility, albeit a CEO of a company or president of a country, head of a nonprofit organization, your main responsibility is the vitality of that company, organization, country, etc. And I think that when you shift your focus on things outside of that company, organization, or country, I think that it becomes distractions, and I think it takes you off the main purpose of which you were given that responsibility to serve. If you've been put into a certain position of responsibility to serve, you have a certain contingency that you need to serve. What can happen is that if your attention starts to be diverted to serving other causes, not to say whether or not other causes are good or not, but if I have a restaurant here and my responsibility is serving anyone in my restaurant, is it responsible for me then to worry about or to focus on cooking something for someone that's in another restaurant or that's not within my purview or within my dominion? And I think that's what needs to be said, is that within these leadership positions, I think we have a global epidemic and an epidemic in our country when it comes to strong, healthy leadership. I think that's the biggest epidemic we have in our country. And I think a decision like this and on a platform at the highest possible level speaks to that, to that epidemic. Because I think if a person is going to take that responsibility to lead the way, to grab the steering wheel, so to speak, they have a responsibility to those that they serve first, and then after that, decisions can be made.
Was this campaign Build Back Better?
That's right.
I mean, that's his campaign, right?
Sure.
That's what people voted.
Sure.
Let's take a look at here's some data. Jordan, if you want to share my screen here real quick. This is the data of the current pensions in the United States of states that have their pensions funded or unfunded. Notice which state has the most funded ratio. They have more money than they need for the pension to pay their workers that work for their institution, or in this case, the state, to make sure that they're taken care of in terms of their pension. Who's at the top?
D.C.
Watch, they took care of themselves, didn't they?
Sure.
Number 2, state of Washington. Number 3, South Dakota. So South Dakota, if you want to have your work for state of South Dakota and you want to have a pension, they got you. You're good to go. There's no worry about your pension not being at a compromised risk down the road. Go to the bottom here. If we go to the bottom, it says bottom right, most unfunded pensions. Kentucky, they have a $42 billion shortfall.
That's a lot.
The state I'm from, a $209 billion shortfall. That's Illinois. And so and look at Texas, somewhere right in the middle, 78% unfunded liability. So basically 78% funded in terms of the pensions. So they're on the left. You want to be on the left side of this report, not the right side. The right side, you're in bad shape. And so the reality is, we can come back here, Jordan. The reality is this: 89% was the former funded ratio of state and local retirement systems, but it declined in 2022 after the pandemic, 77.3. So it's going less. Equitable Institute estimates that unfunded liabilities will total 1.45 trillion for the 2022 fiscal year. So in other words, people out there working hard. They're putting in time. They're trading their best years of their life to work for the state, to work for a company that's going to provide a pension, and then you have things like this. We're going to take your tax dollars that we collect here in America to support the retirement and pensions of some other country, to fight a proxy war. It's got nothing to do with, like Tony, it's like saying, listen, I'm about to go fight against this guy, and he's not prepared. They're not prepared for the fight. And they're not bringing the very best because they're unprepared. So I'm going to take from my purse, from my family, from my coaches, my trainers, my cut man, the people that support me, and I'm going to give it to the other camp, and hoping they pay me back when the fight's.
I got you. I see what you're saying.
Yeah. Right? Would that be something would you do that as a fighter? I mean, unless, of course, it's your charity. But if that's the way you went about doing business.
Not really. I wouldn't do that.
Because you fight for what
I fight for
you earned
the time I'm putting in, the earning and all that stuff. So in boxing, that's what it is. You don't get no extra purse or extra whatever. You sign a contract and you fighting for what you put the work in for.
And then you have a reputation. And say, hey,
it's reputation.
I want to fight Tony Mack because, I don't have to really prepare for my fight. But if I fight Tony Mack, he's going to help take care of my bills. I'm going to fight him.
That's why people want that Mayweather fight, because your life going to change.
But that's because he's drawing eyeballs.
Exactly.
He's not giving you money from his side.
No.
Matter of fact, it's the other way. He's got the lion's share.
Exactly. So they know once you fight somebody like that, their life going to change. So, yeah, so I see what you're saying.
Let's go to a topic here you might feel a little bit more comfortable with.
All right.
Shannon Sharp.
I like him.
You like him?
I like him. Yeah.
Okay. But apparently, he sent out this tweet. I don't know if this is. Do you have that tweet out there?
This is my first time hearing this.
Oh,
What's
okay.
going on?
So he puts out a tweet because he's basically giving a hard time to Scottie Pippen because his ex-wife,
Scottie Pippen, ex-wife?
right, his ex-wife, Larsa Pippen, is now dating Michael Jordan's son.
She was dating somebody else too, right?
Okay.
She was dating a couple of NBA players and a couple of NFL. All right, she got fun.
By the way, in Chicago, I bumped into him. We were at Bijan's late night in Chicago. Bumped into him.
Yeah.
Bought Pip a drink, and there was Larsa right next to him. Anyway, she says here, when I was married, okay, I had sex like 4 times a night. Okay, 4 times a night. So
4 times a night?
4 times a night, man.
All right.
4 times a night. So now she's dating Michael Jordan's son, obviously a lot younger than she is. So anyway, Shannon Sharp sends out a tweet. He sends out this tweet. He says that's why Pip was plagued with back problems during his career.
Yo, and they give him.
My back hurts from reading this, right?
How is that relationship now with Jordan and Pippen? That gotta be weird.
Here's a dumb question. As men of faith, right? It's just men, okay? How do you feel dating a girl with this type of reputation? Would you do it?
No, it's just gonna make you feel. You always watch your back every time. That's what you don't want. You don't want nobody. You gotta always just think of what if this is going on? What if that's going on? You just gotta. I won't do it.
Like who she ran game
yeah,
on?
Exactly.
Yeah.
I won't do it. Yeah, if I heard she's messing around with so many guys, of course people could change anything about that, but it's just scary a little bit.
By the way, Larsa Pippen's response to this tweet, she goes, well, he's got a size 15 shoe. He's fine. Making
funny.
an innuendo to something else. Right?
Exactly.
Making an innuendo to something else.
Right. She is something else.
What about you, Jay? Would you date a woman in this capacity that has this?
Well, when it comes to
Resume.
value, right, and I think that's a great word, right? I think it's a great word when it comes to resume because men are judged on their value based on the resume and what they've done and accomplished, what they've earned, right? That's why we use that the kind of the hashtag earn it.
Yep.
And the other way around, I think that if a woman makes some decisions that she could potentially be making herself less desirable to other men, it may being one of them, but that's okay, right? I'm not in the mix for that category. But I think that, it is something for young ladies to think about. And the other challenge there is whether or not there are young ladies that are emulating this and idolizing this and not realizing what comes along with it, what comes along with certain types of behavior. Because, that's the whole OnlyFans epidemic.
For sure.
Right? So now what comes along with that type of behavior is going to be long-term consequences. And I think that's definitely something that's viable, and it's about character. And they have to realize those decisions, it's going to stick around. And I'm not here to say whether anything's ethically right or wrong. Yeah. I'm just here to say that those decisions are going to stick around for the long haul.
So yes, as a married man, what initially attracted you to your wife?
Our conversation. It was moments when we was quiet and didn't feel awkward at all.
Yeah.
We just had a really good time.
Okay.
And she made me wait. She didn't.
Okay.
Normally
So
when I was a fighter, I tried to close the deal. That day I'm like, yo, let's go, whatever. But she was very respectful. She was very respectful. She respected herself, and so and she was just a good person to be around with. The conversation was fun, and the energy was fun, and of course you could fall in love with anybody, but it's all about chemistry and stuff like that. We just had a good chemistry, and she was a good person, and she was a woman of God. That's what made it happen too, because she a woman of faith, so it helped out a lot.
So both of you guys, if you put a scale of 1 to 10. What would initially attract you about a woman? Her character or her looks? Initially.
She gotta look good first. That's gonna attract you.
Me too.
Yeah, she gotta look right.
Okay.
Attraction. Yeah.
But reason is I asked this question to a lot of women. Looks is not at the top of the list for a lot of them.
It's a lot of money. It's
It's
the guap.
the guap.
It's the guap. You gotta have the guap.
So like guacamole? I mean,
You gotta get the guap. You gotta get the.
Where did that come from? Is that a Chicago thing? That's an honest question.
Hey, I honestly don't know. I just
know
been
the
using
origins of guac?
Let's go Google it. Origins
This
of
is what we need to talk about. Guac. Can we find out where guac?
It's the guap. You gotta get the. What about?
Is it with a P? Guap?
I say guap.
Guap.
It might be guacamole, guac.
Let's
I thought it was guacamole because it was extra, right? Like if you go to Chipotle,
I just been using it. Don't know
Urban
the exact
Dictionary.
word.
If you go to Chipotle,
guap. Okay.
guac is extra.
Guap, is it guap or guac?
Jordan can go on the monitor here. Guap. We found it. Urban Dictionary.
Urban Dictionary.
Right? Urban Dictionary.
say?
It means
it's
it's it. Guap. You had it right. Short of guapo.
Over money.
It could mean that you have money in your hands. Take a moment. Count my guap.
Oh.
Count my guap.
I knew what I was talking about.
Right? So, that's right. So,
all right.
To follow
Now you got that guap, Jason.
Ask and listen, I do, and I thought it was guapo. I didn't know where it came from.
Well, hey, money's handsome too.
It's very handsome.
Money's handsome too as well.
It goes back to your point as well. Maybe what are some of the things that are most attractive in a man? If you ask young ladies, what do they say?
Yeah. I would say for my wife, her character showed out because she was making her own money. Do I like the fact that Sheena was independent? She had her own thing going on. She was in sales. Mm-hmm. She was ambitious. She was a single mom, handling her thing. What got me to have a check mark with her, green flag, not red flag, green flag was, I said, babe, let's go to Vegas. She goes, really? Cool. Right away, she booked her ticket. She didn't wait for me. She booked her ticket. Yeah. I'm like, whoa, she ain't wait. And she knows that, she knows I was making money.
You made a really good point because my wife was the same way. She was a surgical assistant her entire career, and she never once asked me anything. She always wanted to split the bill. She always wanted to pay. And I was like, that's pretty cool. It made me want to do more for her because she wasn't money hungry.
Yeah.
Yeah, so.
So she had her finances
She had her finances together, yeah.
Now, in this movement today, in this era, you got this movement of women out there. I'm a boss B, right? I'm a this, right? But there's the difference between being a boss B and flexing it. Mm-hmm. Just like the same guy, having this guap, and flexing it too. But also being confident. I ain't got to flex it. I ain't got to show. But I'm confident in my finances. And
100%.
if I don't like this date, I know I can Uber home. I can take a cab home, and get out of here, and safely get home without me depending upon a man to take me home. I've got twin daughters that are 21 years old, and I want to make sure that they can walk out of the date.
Exactly, they ain't feeling it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Do you think your demeanor or think that anything about you would change if you were to have your wife decide to have kids one day and you have a daughter?
Yeah.
You have a certain demeanor of how you would be with a son versus a daughter.
Yeah, I am. I'm gonna be very different. I think I'm gonna be a push-up when it comes to a daughter.
I mean, I'm definitely a pushover.
My son, I'm like, all right, son, you 7 years old now. You a man. Quit crying.
Get a job. Today, you will find employment.
I said get a job.
I ain't gonna get a job. Quit crying, boy.
That's funny.
But no, yeah, I'm gonna be a little different. Regardless, they both gonna learn how to fight. I'm not gonna make them fight. They gonna know how to protect themselves, and I'm gonna just let them just have fun with life. Let them find their own path and let them figure it out themselves. Because that's what my family did and my pops did with me. He didn't force me to do anything. He just like, hey, whatever, son, go do what you want. Like, he literally let me do what I wanted to do growing up. Like, I didn't have no curfew or anything. But at the same time, he installed the fear of God in me. And I always knew that if I messed up, that he was right there. And that's what I want so bad. I want to let my kids do what they want to do, but know that if they mess up, I'm on their ass. You know?
Yeah.
And so that's what made me want a kid so bad, because my pops raised me by himself. Yeah. He could have been he was out, like I said, out running the streets and all that stuff, but he made sure I was taken care of as a single man. Yeah. He was messing with different women and all this, but he always came first, no matter what. And so I'm like, I want to build that same legacy. I don't want to be the same man my pops. I want to be twice the man my pops was because of what he installed in me. I want to keep that going. So I give it to my son or daughter. It don't matter, but that's what I'm doing. I'm gonna let my son have his own, or daughter have his own mentality, have their own thought process, and just let them live this life, because it's scary out here in this world. You just gotta just trust God, man. That's where faith come in. That's where God, you gotta raise them up in a godly manner, man. You gotta just keep them in faith, in church.
Let's shift to that category. How do you choose a pastor? How do you choose a pastor? Do you ever, because there's certain churches I've been to, like, it's cool, worship's cool, and music's cool, but all right, doesn't make me. Not to say that you have to be motivated to come every Sunday, because that's your. If there's anything religious about it, that's your duty to serve the church, to show up, to continue to fellowship, as it says in Hebrews, to show up, to continue to fellowship, et cetera, et cetera. But how does one choose? I've got my thoughts on choosing a pastor, because when I moved to Dallas, that was one of my key areas. Can I find a church that's playing offense as a ministry?
And you were actively looking, I remember. And, a lot of that has to do with who has walked a path that you're interested in learning how they walked. And I think that's very important. I think it's important in any conversations that we have, and finding a mentor in the business world, right? That mentor is someone you want to have had walk that path. They can provide better insight. And I think the same is with a pastor. I think a pastor has to be able to provide insight, and a pastor is almost like a chef, right? And every pastor you go to has the same basket of ingredients, the Bible, but everyone cooks it up a little bit differently, right? So it's about understanding how you ingest what you're hungry for and how that pastor cooks. Just a metaphor that I made up, but therein lies the thought process in saying, you know what, the way this pastor cooks it up, I'm not sure that I agree with that 1,000%, but they've also walked a walk that I'm interested in learning from them.
Now,
so I think that's important.
If they're walking a walk, do you think a pastor should love their job? They should like run through a wall type.
Run through a brick wall, yes. And that's the pastor I have. My pastor is also my business coach. I don't know if you heard of Keith Craft. He does it. I literally just left Masterminds. Before I came here, I was in Keith Craft Masterminds. And so I do that once every 6 months, and he's been my mentor. Where he teaches, he does everything through godly principles. He do money through godly principles. He teaches legacy. He teaches alignments. He teaches
alignment determines the assignment, right?
Yes, exactly.
His leadershipologies.
His leadershipologies. And I've been with him since 2019, and I went to different churches and everything, but I just love the way he just not afraid to talk about money. He's not afraid to talk about business in church, and it inspired me. And that's how my
politics.
In politics, he talked politics in church. I'm like, it's not me. And then I love it. But he said, he's not afraid of that.
But my first church service at Elevate Life was when he was breaking down CRT.
Yeah, I remember.
He's not afraid of that.
Jordan, can you show my screen here real quick? Because here's the challenge, though. Only half of U.S. pastors are very satisfied with the vocation, says the study. So if you want leadership in our country, and it's led through the churches, the challenge here is that, what's it saying here? The share of pastors with a high level of satisfaction regarding their vocation has dropped 20 points since 2015, when 72% of pastors characterize themselves as very satisfied. Our research shows that today's pastors are deeply struggling with their sense of calling in the wake of COVID. In 2020, 2/3, 67% of pastors surveyed consider themselves very satisfied. That's it? So my thing with the pastors, you're letting a lockdown, a shutdown, a virus, a conflict, a distraction keep you from preaching the word that you're supposed to be preaching. Matter of fact, it should be opposite. You should be doubling down, because a lot of values and principles that we stand for in our faith was challenged during COVID.
100%.
And if COVID made you think twice about being a pastor,
You don't love it.
Yeah, what were you being a pastor for?
Exactly. You got to fight for that stuff.
Are you only a good time pastor when times are good? And I like wartime pastors, man. Wartime pastors are willing to go after and take the gloves off.
You got to have that warrior mindset, man. That pastor's got to have, like what Keith Craft, he teaches. He said that I went to Warrior Night, and I got Warrior Night tattooed on me. So there's battles we're losing, the battles we lost, battles we're still fighting, the battles we won. So we got to have a warrior mindset. And some of these pastors don't have that warrior mindset. So when things go wrong, they like to crumble. But you gotta keep fighting, man. You gotta have that warrior mindset. So that's what we're about, man.
Completely.
Fighting.
Do you want down the road your kids to go to college?
Not really. I didn't go to college. I barely made high school. But I'm more successful than the smartest people in college. Meaning in high school. Some of them, but it's all about finding your path, man. It's all about finding what you willing to dedicate your life to. It's all about finding something you're passionate about. It's all about your core passion. And I don't think you need college unless you're going to be a doctor or a lawyer or something like that.
So STEM, basically.
Exactly, yeah. So I believe you should intern somebody that you look up to, a mentor. Find a mentor and follow their steps and take it to the next. Because that's what I did. One of my mentors is Nathan Pipitone. He owned a blind company, but he's just a hardcore entrepreneur. And I seen him just put in work day in and day out. Build it. He had millions of dollars, lost the millions when he met me, and I saw him build his $1 million business up again. And he like, when I was fighting, he always taught me about what's next. That would help me become more successful in the membership business, the boxing business I am now, because we always planned it. Like, you can't fight forever. So what's next? What's next? So we always planned on me becoming a coach, but we didn't know that it was going to happen so quick. And so that's one of the reasons why I'm successful right now, because of that what's next attitude. He always had that. He always taught me the principles of building a business.
What do you see more, millionaire fighters or millionaire entrepreneurs?
Millionaire, that's a good question. I see more millionaire entrepreneurs now, man, because it's, millionaire entrepreneurs, because it's all about the people that figured out what you can't fight forever. Once you learn that you can't do this forever, then you could move into something else, because most fighters seeking that right now. Like the fighters I came up with, they thinking about what's next. And I'm saying some of them be successful as one of them. And it's pretty cool that some of the world champions that I looked up to, some of the world champions that I used to admire, and they're coming to me for business advice now. They're like, yo, I've been watching you on Instagram. What did you do next? What is, like, how did you start this business? How did you get into this? How did you get into that? I'm like, yo, I look up to you. And you asking me for advice. So I'm like, yo, so that's a good idea. We could, don't take my idea, but, mastermind for these athletes on what's next. It's all about these ex-athletes.
It's interesting that you mentioned that. Is that so? Last night I was at an event. Texas A&M University is doing this amazing program for student athletes called Amplify You. Yeah. And it's being put on within the entrepreneurship program and with the School of Business, all for student athletes. Yeah. And that's the whole thought process. So a couple of former NFL players that were there yesterday, and they said jokingly that NFL stands for not for long.
Not for long. Yeah. That's funny.
Right?
Not for long.
Not for long, right? And the average NFL career is 3 years. At the same time, what are they thinking about that's going to be poised for the future? So we pivoted slightly, but at the end of the day, I think it's about skill set. One of the other questions you asked Tony was about college and what it means to children. Again, I think to add on to what Tony said, I agree with him 1,000%. It's about whether or not your children have found what it is their purpose is. If you found the purpose and it's aligned with a higher education and an institution, absolutely go for it. But if their purpose is not aligned with an institution, then is it really necessary? I don't know. And I think that that's something that's being taught within this program. Again, Texas A&M University, Amplify You. And what they're doing is they're building out a lot of the mindset for athletes and making them also realize that a lot of the skills that we learned on the field are also what can be used on the battlefield of business. Because you can attest to that. Business is a sport.
sure.
Business is battle. There is a battlefield that you go, and every day you want to be alongside people that want to win and want to fight just as hard as you do. So college can give that to some people if it's aligned with their purpose. If it's not, I don't think it's going to be necessary in another 5, 10, 20 years. But then the word there is necessary versus a nice to have.
Yeah.
And I think that that's the value of a lot of what technology provides from an information perspective. I think there'll be a lot of opportunities for people to learn and follow their purpose, not just their passion, because I think that's overused.
Okay.
But I think it's about figuring out what your purpose is, because a lot of things I'm passionate about, but I don't plan on driving an F1 car anytime soon.
That's it.
Right? I don't think I'm going to make it as an F1 driver.
You should
but-
have started at 4 years old.
4 years old.
Let's react to some of these videos here before we wrap up the show here. Get your thoughts on it. Let's bring up you want to start with Deion, Jordan? Start with Deion says. This is what he said about recruiting.
Backs are different.
Yeah.
We want mother, father, dual parent.
Mm-hmm.
We want that kid to be 3, 5 and up because he's got to be smart.
Mm-hmm.
Not bad decisions off the field at all because he has to be a leader of men. It's so many different attributes and what we look for. Physical, offensive lineman. Defensive lineman is totally opposite.
What do you mean?
Single mama. Trying to get it. He's on free lunch. I'm talking about just trying to make it. He's trying to rescue mama. Like mama barely made the flight. Quarterbacks are different.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts about this? So, is there certain attributes for? I mean, he's getting a lot of flack for that.
Really? Why is he getting flack for it? Because you talking about the D-line and stuff like that?
Yeah,
Or-
you're so wrong. You're so politically incorrect about that, but that's the truth.
Well,
that's the reality.
yeah,
I mean,
there's-
I'm looking for an angry D lineman.
And Tony said something earlier where he said that the best fighters are the ones that were the hungriest, that came from certain places. So I think it leads a conversation, which is the nature-nurture conversation. Yep. And I think within human nature that we're designed a certain way, but our upbringing also creates different characteristics along the way. Those characteristics can then be used and pivoted towards other endeavors. And I think he's able to identify it, as I catch my glasses. I think he's able to identify it and say, look, what I've found is that people that excel in this type of position are people with this type of background. And, I think that it's completely aligned with human nature. And I think the fact that if people think that that's audacious, I think that they're not aligning themselves with reality. And I think what he said aligns with reality. I believe that he's gotten himself to where he is today because he speaks the reality that he lives by, and I have a lot of respect for that.
Quick question. I'm a football fan, but does quarterbacks have to have a crazy IQ to be a successful quarterback? Because you gotta be a ring general. You gotta have generalship on the field. You gotta be a leader. You have to be smart to play quarterback. So that's why he's saying you got to have a certain GPA and stuff like that to be a successful quarterback. What do you think about that?
Because they're studying the game.
Okay.
It's an example of showing that you're studying the schemes, you're doing film study, and that's what students do.
Yeah.
And that's what quarterbacks will have to do. They'll have to study that's the most important position, I would say in all the sports. I mean, the quarterback. So, that goes into it.
And some might even use the analogy that they're the CEO on the field at that moment.
Yeah. And
right?
a coach.
Because you have the
And
board of
and
advisors.
coach,
Well, you have the board of advisors that are making some decisions in the box.
Yeah.
You have the team on the line, the offensive coordinators, the defensive coordinators that are calling the plays.
Yeah.
But a lot of the times, it's the CEO that's there to pivot. What's going on? I had a great conversation with a gentleman named Chris Valletta. He runs an amazing company called Mission. They make a fabric that cools when it gets wet. And he was telling us this great story, and he's the one that's running this Texas A&M program, telling us this great story about how COVID took one item that they had, of which was a neck gaiter, from $1 million in sales a year to $1 million in sales a week.
Bang.
Because of the neck gaiter. And he was telling us through the challenges, that's calling audibles on the field.
Of course.
He's calling audibles on the field. Yeah. He's seeing the defense line up in nickel. Hold on, what's going on? I see the blitz coming. Let's call this off. Yeah. Wait a second, we need to,
Omaha.
Completely.
That's it.
Completely. So the view there is that the quarterback on the field is the closest person to having the CEO position on that team. And he can make decisions and he can call people out. He can hold them to high standards and call out from an accountability perspective. And then to what Tony said is I think that along with that comes a certain IQ and a certain EQ that has to be able to lead people.
Yep.
And there's a lot that comes with that. And also to what Dion said is having both parents at home, help develop both of those skills along the way.
And plus, you got to lead men.
Completely.
And, yeah, there's a lot of there to unpack. I want to go to this next video here. Let's go to Tupac. You listen to Tony? You grew up listening to Tupac?
Oh, man, Pac's my guy.
Of course. Right?
Yeah.
Whoa,
Let's
we
go
gonna
to
have the
this
Pac
video.
Biggie conversation.
Hold
on. Can I stand up for the rest of this? Hold on.
Here we go. So let's hear what Tupac had to say here about God.
I wanted God to know that even though I was going through the worst of times, I still recognized Him as being something greater than myself. And that I'm not going to give up my faith just because it's going bad for me. Because He was there when I was living good. So I just wanted Him to know that, that I'm not no punk, I'm not soft-hearted. That when it gets bad, I'm going to be like, oh, I don't believe in God no more. I believe in God all the time, every day, all day. Good and bad, rough and hard, 5 shots, jail time, everything. Good time, $1 million, Benzes, all that. I always believe in God because He gave it all to me.
Imagine that message today with a current artist in 2023. An artist that has a bold enough conviction to talk about his faith. What artist in 2023, what modern artist today is talking about their faith and bold enough to even declare it?
Yeah.
Kanye, he's kind of doing it.
Yeah.
He made a couple of gospel music.
What happened to him? Too bad though.
Yeah.
But by the way, sick gospel music.
Yeah.
This his compilations, the way he's putting choirs together. Crazy music,
This is
man.
beautiful. But not too many people doing it. And that's how I built my business, by putting God out there first. And I don't care what nobody think. Like you said, through the worst of times, through the best of times, I knew that God always had my back. I always knew that God was in my life. I remember picking up trash for a living for 6 years straight for free rent. You know what I'm saying? Like when all my college friends was laughing at me, cracking jokes and stuff like that, but I'm still picking up trash. Like, yo, I know that I'm gonna do something better than this.
Weren't you mad at God when you had eye surgeries?
I never
You took
once
away-
mad at God. I think what made me more successful, because I never cursed God throughout the whole process. Throughout the whole process, I always knew that, hey, something else is gonna come bigger. And I think that's why I'm successful to this day, because my gratitude. My gratitude to God, my gratitude to faith, staying consistent with my tithing, staying consistent with giving, staying consistent with just when I'm scared, sow a seed. Every time I get afraid, every time I get nervous, and every time I just feel like something's going wrong, I sow a seed. And I was doing that not even knowing I was doing it. And so that's why I believe successes continue to come my way, because I'm always sowing a seed. Even when I'm scared to sow a seed, when I don't want to, I just sow a seed.
How does somebody in their worst moments, Tony, how does somebody in their worst moments still sow a seed? What's that formula? What's that action plan? And stay grateful during the tough moments.
Feel the pain, feel it in that moment, but don't let it beat you up, and do something that's going to scare you. Do something that's going to scare you, and just help somebody in need. Give it to a church. Do something that's going to naturally pick up your spirits, because you can easily just stay down. You can easily beat yourself up, like no pun intended, boxing.
Yeah.
You can easily do that, but once you notice it, do something right away.
It's funny how that response had nothing to do with taking care of yourself, but taking care of other people.
That's it. That's how I live.
That's how you sow a seed, man.
Just sow a seed.
Because so many people want to be just themselves. It's in this
Yeah,
world.
100%.
I mean,
Yeah,
how many times, as I wrap stuff up, I'm just asking this final question.
Sure.
You lost your father a couple years ago,
Yep.
as you shared earlier.
Sure.
Did you get mad at God?
No.
Were you like, Tupac, listen, I'm only,
Well,
God only in good times?
there were a lot of ups and downs throughout my relationship with my father. And I had to realize that someone can't give you something that they don't have. And my father gave me what he had, and that's good and bad, and there are things. And I needed to also have conversations, even with my father's grave, if I'm being even more, upfront about it, and understanding what it is that he gave me in a good way and in a bad way. And I had to understand that, and I had to come to terms with that. But at the end of the day, I couldn't blame God. I needed to look at it and say, what did I need to learn from this? And interesting enough, I happened to have my notebook, and I had this written down. Someone said, I don't remember who said it recently, but it was John 13:7. You may not know now, but later you will understand. And I jotted that down. And now look when I needed it, when I'm sitting in front of two men that I have an immense amount of respect for. And at the same time, we can look back 2 years ago when we went to go have breakfast at the Breakers during a conference, and we just had a conversation. I said, hello, and stuck my hand out. Next thing you know, sowing a seed into relationships, sowing a seed into friendship. How can you help people along the way when you moved here to Frisco? How can I help in any way possible? 2 years later, we're sitting here, you know, a great podcast, people that, you know, can listen to maybe something that we can sow into their lives, and that's the goal. You know, we put it out there because the idea is that no one owes us anything, but if we pray for what we want, and then we earn it, and we get what we deserve, and that's why I always say earn it. Yep. And everything we do, we need to earn, and that's why even if there's something that we don't get, maybe there's something that we didn't realize we didn't do to get it.
Yep.
Or God didn't want us to have it, and hey, no problem.
I saw a post on Instagram the other day said you can't replace prayer with work. What do you think about that?
Yeah. We say all the time, pray like it's up to God, but work like it's up to you.
Exactly, yeah.
You know, every time I think about tough times, I think about the biblical character, and the whole entire book is dedicated to him, which is Job. It's funny, I saw the book of Job, J-O-B, right? But I pronounced it Job. He says, Mom, why do I got to read a book about Job? No, it's Job.
Job, yeah.
And I started reading about Job and all the struggles he went through. And times are great. Next thing you know, God started taking things away from him because God was having a conversation with Satan, talking about, all right, he goes, yeah, he's only praising you because times are great. And then what did God do? All right, let me pull back, right? And
pull back a lot.
Right? And then Satan went after him and boom, right? And then what was Job saying in his whole process? Man, I even cursed the day I was born. He didn't curse God directly. He cursed his own self. Like, I wish I was never born. I wish I never had this stuff. I wish I never had this business. I wish I never had this family. I wish I was never born. And then God questioned him, are you serious? You don't think I got purpose in your life? And the moment that Job had an attitude change, not only did he get all that back, but it was more than what he had originally because he became grateful. Yeah. He became thankful.
Yeah, it's kind of like that old movie, It's a Wonderful Life.
Yeah.
And it's along those lines. And when you're grateful for what you have, the good, the bad, and the ugly, then things can build from there.
100%. Sure.
Thank you,
gentlemen, I appreciate you both for being here, man.
Thank
you guys are my first tandem interviews. The first time I've done this.
Hope it went amazing.
Yeah.
Hope this go viral. I believe it will.
I pray in a right man or woman is going to hear this conversation, hear your guys' story and how you guys are leading your lives, and know that it's just not the riffraff that's out there. It's the gentleman that's out there working hard, willing to go through a wall, willing to contribute to the community, willing to honor and worship our God and have faith in our lives, not just because, you know, it's kind of like, hey, we believe in God. No, we believe in God and we're running our business and our life through it. And and the judgment is not whether or not, you know, the standard is not us walking on water. That doesn't make it perfect. Just because we're believers in Christ doesn't make us perfect.
Yeah,
but
not perfect at all.
The fact that we're looking to get better and excel. And I appreciate you guys living excellent lives and lives that people can model and follow through to as well.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you.
So make sure you follow these gentlemen here. Their links are at the bottom. And if you've been watching this, make sure you hit subscribe, hit like, drop your comments below. You agree with us? You don't agree with us? Please put it in the comment section below. Next Wednesday, back with the Millionaire Goals podcast at 12 o'clock Central Standard Time, noon. Appreciate you guys tuning in. Tony Mack.
Thank you.
Jason Elias. Money Smart Guy. Until we meet again. Continue to live smart. Continue to love smart. And be money smart today. God bless you guys. Bye-bye.